Howdy, folks. Doctor McFarland here. We are in the presence of the analog master, Bruce Kasprzyk, and a longtime friend from MTSU. And we're just going to hang out tonight and chat about guitars, amps, microphones, analog equipment, pretty much whatever we want at this point, right?
Yeah.
So, Bruce, what part of where do you reside?
Well, I'm from South Jersey, but I live in South Central Wisconsin, about a little ways outside of Madison. And yeah, I've been there about 15 years. So that's where I'm at right now.
So the winters are a little rugged up there, right?
Yeah, just the way I like it. I work outside, so I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah. But right now, it's pretty much hot no matter where you go.
Yeah, the humidity's relentless.
That's good. I'm actually looking forward to the fall. As much as a t-shirt and shorts guy that I am, I know it's just been way too hot.
Yeah, I don't dig the heat. I'm a heat wuss. I keep the house at 60 in the wintertime, 58 at night.
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind the football weather. You know, kind of 60s, high 50s, somewhere in there. It's pretty good for me. All right, guys. So not a lot of news this week. I got a few video topics I've been meaning to get out, but once again, I just find myself watching too much basketball and coming home from work and not doing a whole lot. So. I usually have a little bit of guitar stuff going on there. So yeah, Bruce, tell us about your how you got into audio.
Well, I was prime minister of the AV club in high school. There was a teacher named Senor. He's from Spain, and English was like his sixth language. He still spoke it better than we did, and so he was the king of the AV club. I said, "Yeah, Senor, you're the king, but you're a powerless figurehead. I'm the prime minister. I call the shots around here." So the Cinnaminson Community Chorus, which is Cinnaminson, the township I'm from in South Jersey. They have this choir of geezers, and as part of the AV club, they asked me, one of the members worked at the school I went to, and asked me if I would do the video for it, which I paid a buddy $5 to do the video, and then I did the audio, and ended up selling 45 copies of that on cassette. And so I'd make money and reinvest, and so I did that for several years and decided, I'd like to study this. I actually kind of like it, and work a little bit on my own gear, and I just went from there. Went to school for it.
Yeah, this was in the late 90s, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere in there?
Yeah, mid to late 90s, yeah. I saved up for an old 68, it was a 1971 Revox A77 tape machine, which I bought brought from Trading Times. It was a local paper in the Delaware Valley, and we drove all the way across to the west suburbs of Philly to get it, and I paid $300 for it in 1995. I saved up for a year of delivering newspapers and bought this thing. I still have it, by the way, and I've restored it myself, maintained it, and just been at it ever since.
Nice. I think I had it out somewhere. I have a Tascam Porta Studio 2.
Oh, is that a cassette?
Which is a cassette recorder. And you could do 2 tracks at a time. And there's like little slider things that you can choose, like which 2 tracks you can record at once. But you can fill up 4 tracks per side. Or something like that, I think.
All one direction.
Yeah, all one direction.
Yeah,
so
one of those ones.
So I used that for a lot of demo work, just recording little ditties and stuff. And then at some point I was like, I'm going to make an album. So I would record a bunch of stuff to the tape, and then transfer it to my mom's PC computer. And somehow I managed to get enough tracks pulled together to actually make like 9 or 10 songs.
Oh, okay. I don't think I ever heard those.
You don't want to. That's down on the internet for all the world to listen to, but you probably don't want to listen.
Okay.
It's pretty bad. I actually kind of wish I still had those tracks so I could maybe remaster them or redo them somehow, but nowadays with the power of AI, you could technically... AI could listen to the song and it could separate out each individual track.
Abbey Road developed a proprietary piece of software. I think they call it D-Mix. And so they took some of those mono and stereo mixes of the Beatles stuff and actually were able to pull out each individual part into different multi-tracks. And so that's why there's a Dolby Atmos mix of Rubber Soul, for example. They were able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive, I have to admit.
Now, I think they definitely have an upper hand compared to like things I can access because
Yeah, they don't let it out of their studio.
Yeah, it's not it's not going to be as intricate as what they have available.
Right.
Like the way they could go back and do that last Beatles single that they released, where it was like John's vocal and a piano, but they couldn't separate it enough to do anything with for like 15 years or something.
Right.
So,
well, I think 95 is when it was.
Yeah, probably
discovered.
95. Yeah.
So that's coming up on 30 years. How's that grab you?
Well, that's about when I started playing guitar. Was about 95. So it's been a long time, but yeah, just the power of AI and how they can use the technology, which the Beatles were all about.
Yeah, they
were all about technology.
Yeah.
They just didn't have a lot of it to access at that point, back in the 60s.
Well, they pushed the technology farther even than it was ever designed to go. They Abbey Road at the time had a Studer, it's a J37, I think it was a 4-track 1-inch tape machine, and they actually modified it where they would unsolder the erase head and then record over a track that was already there, and that's how they would overdub it onto the same track. But the catch is that if they messed up, then they would ruin the original track as well. And
right.
Then also, modifying a $20,000 tape machine, not $20,000 in $1965, was not always, that wouldn't have been viewed favorably by anybody else. But when you're the Beatles, you don't have to explain anything to anybody.
Right.
All right. So they
just go buy another one.
Yeah, they just let them do it. There were
keep
two
experimenting.
Of those. They had two of those, and that's how they did Sgt. Pepper, I believe, in 60. Well, it came out in 67, so I think it would have been 66 into 67. Yeah, which I think Paul McCartney has one, and Abbey Road still has the other. I doubt they use it very much, but I think they still do have it because there's a lot of 1-inch tapes that they have in storage, and if they want to play any of them, then
yeah,
they kind of need that. But
well, let's go over some of the gear that you have that you've acquired in the last however many years, and
okay,
like what's your main rig these days?
Well, I kind of have two. This is a shirt from my recording business.
Yeah,
and I have a respectable digital rig and a respectable analog rig. For my digital rig, I use merging converters, and they're not real commonly known. They're out of Switzerland, and they're actually made in Switzerland, not in China or whatever. And there's a label out there, Mobile Fidelity Records, and their whole business model was to take original master tapes, run the tape at half speed, running the cutting lathe at half speed for a very high quality record, and they'd sell these for $15, back in the early 80s. That was plenty back then. And
oh yeah.
So some of those early pressings are worth many, many hundreds, even thousands of dollars now in good condition. But they that was their first series from 1977 to 1989, and then they were gone for a while. And then in the mid 90s, they had another run called Anadisc 200. It was a 200 gram. I am going somewhere with this, by the way.
Oh yes.
And so they had a 200 gram pressing, also a half-speed cut, and then again the vinyl went away. They always did CDs, and then later SA CDs, and so then their third series, they have this ultra analog gain 2 system, they called it, and they started in 09. Well, as it turns out, they started using a digital stage. Their whole business model was tape head to cutting head, but they started using this digital interstage without telling anybody, and this went on for almost 15 years, and finally they got...
And no one noticed the difference?
No one noticed.
Wow.
And so finally they got busted. And...
maybe in a good way, I don't know.
Well, yeah, they almost went out of business, but they got busted, and it's funny though, because many of their reissues, not all of them, but a lot of them were very well acclaimed by critics, and then all of a sudden everybody finds out there's a digital stage. It's the same product, still sounds the same, but just knowing that there's a digital stage, people are just like, well, I can't have that. So I looked into it to see what converters they used to fool a million ears, and it was these converters by merging, and they have it's a 1 rack space unit, and you can get different cards in the back. It could be A to D, D to A cards. They have a MADI card, AES EBU, and then it converts it to Ethernet. So you can have your converter 100 meters up to 100 meters away from your computer and still have a clear signal get through. I despise Thunderbolt. It's so bogus. Like after a meter, there's trouble with the cable. Anyway, so I figured, well, these converters that fooled a million ears, that's good enough for me. So I sold a bunch of gear. Over a year, I raised money to buy these converters, 16 in, 16 out, no processing, no plugins, nothing, just A to D, D to A. And so that's my digital rig. And then my analog rig, I've got a lot of stuff. I have an Otari MX80. It's a 24-track, 2-inch reel-to-reel machine. It runs at 15 and 30 inches per second. And so luckily I can maintain that myself. And I have that set up in my basement. I have people come over, and I have friends that work on their records, and I've been working on one since April of 21 with a friend of mine. And he manages a bank, so he lives in the real world and understands that, or as real as a world as we have, and then understands that things cost money. So I said, all right, I'll record you for free, but you buy the tape.
Yeah.
Well, 33 minutes of tape costs $400. And that's at low speed. And then he said, that's fine. He's on his 5th tape now. That's how much material he's got. And then I'll mix that down. Everything I mix down, I have a 1995, date stamp's October 13th, 1995. It's an Allen & Heath GL4, 32 channel analog mixing board, made in the UK, not in China. And I completely restored it myself. I took out every card. Every channel is a circuit card. Well, it's 2 actually, but I replaced every single capacitor in that entire thing. It took about 7 months to really restore it, and about 2,200 solder connections, and I only made 5 or 6 mistakes. Nothing that blew anything up. It's just stuff wouldn't work, and it had these capacitors in the mic pre-stage that were of poor quality, and they all rotted, and they leaked capacitor juice all over everything, which is very corrosive, and it ate up the traces. It literally ate the copper they were just green and slimy, and they wouldn't conduct anymore. So I cleaned all that up, cut the old traces out, and made little jumpers between the different parts that needed to talk to each other.
And which machine was this?
This is an Allen & Heath GL4.
Oh, that one. Okay.
Yeah. So my 2-inch machine is hooked up to that, and I got a big old patch bay, and so then my merging converters are hooked up to that as well. So I don't mix in the box. I use the computer kind of as a transport, where I'll do plugins and mixing and all that.
Sure.
To a point, but then each track gets its own D to A converter, so that it comes in. Each one has a channel on the mixing board, and I mix it there.
Nice.
Right down to a 1/4-inch tape. I've got 4 1/4-inch machines. But my main two are 1967 Ampex 440. I think it might have been the 14th one ever made, because the serial number was 1014, and it had Simpson meters, not Dixon meters, which are the original. Simpson didn't make audio meters much longer after that, and so I fully restored that, replaced every capacitor, and then I've got a 1984 Otari MTR10. MTSU has one. Well, they did when we were there. I don't know if they still do, but that's quite high quality. And then for smaller projects and some small stuff that I do live, I use a Tascam. It's a 1984 Tascam 48. It's an 8-track 1/2-inch, and then I've got a 1968 Ampex. It's a 1/2-inch 4-track, so it's only 4 tracks on a 1/2-inch tape. So it's very high quality, 15 inches per second. And I'll do like chamber orchestras, things like that, where I need a lot of dynamic range. So, the way to get that is fewer tracks on more tape.
Right.
So, let's see. That's that so far. And then for my analog processing, I actually built a lot of 500 series modules. You can get them in kits from various companies. Hairball Audio, they're out of Seattle. They're good. A lot of good stuff. They make some good mic pre's. And so I bought 6 of those, put those together. And then they make copies of 1176. A lot of these neat old compressors from the 60s are out of patent now, and so you can make copies. And so they've made some copies that fit in a 500 series module. And so me and my boy Tim we each built one. We built them together, and it's his first time he'd ever soldered anything, and his came out cleaner than mine. And I've been soldering since 91. So, over 30 years, and he still just went right on by me. I'm like, good for you, Tim. So.
Wow. Yeah, I've always been scared to do those, those do-it-yourself 500 series stuff. I'll probably get it wrong somehow, but...
well, I don't want to disrespect any particular manufacturer on the show, so I won't mention them, but just beware that, if you're going to give that a try, well, there's different levels of difficulty, like the Lola mic pre's from Hairball Audio are not really that difficult.
Yeah.
They're very high quality. The 1176 copies are very difficult. They're actually 2 circuit boards, and they barely fit in that profile for that module.
Wow.
But then there's another one out there that I tried that the instruction manual was just plain wrong. And it lacked some very important details, and I emailed the company, and they didn't really know. They couldn't really give me a straight answer, so I'm like, well, you guys running a business or not?
Yeah, Bruce, we got a question here from Sachi K. What are your guys' thoughts on Stereo 96 ADC MyTech? Do you know what that is? 96 ADC MyTech.
MyTech converters?
I guess.
ADC, so ADC, I assume that means analog digital converters. I know of MyTech. I think they make a D to A converter for the audiophile market. I think they have like the Brooklyn 2. They were made in Poland, I believe.
Okay.
And I've heard nothing but good things about them, but...
Now, interestingly enough, when you say Brooklyn, I know the Dante cards that come in the new Harrison consoles, those are Brooklyn cards, I think.
Okay.
They say Brooklyn a lot at work, so I'm like, I think that sounds familiar enough.
Yeah, I haven't used them myself, but I've heard nothing but good things. So
Gotcha. Sachi also had a question on how to record vocals into Mixbus. So Mixbus is now what Mixbus 32C used to be. So essentially what that means is on the mix page, you still get the 32C EQ on every channel and so forth. So let me add a few tracks here so you can see what I'm talking about. So let's just add we'll add 4, for example, and we'll call these vocal. So if you're recording over or like a stereo backing track or, some kind of mix you've already made, what you get here on every track is, first of all, you have the editor mixer on the left side of the screen here. So on the top, this is where you can actually click to show all your inputs. And right now I'm using a Antelope Orion Studio Synergy Core, which I have plugged in USB, which technically I can get 24 inputs. If I had it plugged in Thunderbolt or USB-C, I could technically get 32 inputs into it. Okay. So I don't know why there's that limitation there, but there's the limitation. So regardless, it doesn't matter. This microphone right here is now plugged into input number 2. Okay, so I set my input first. You want to record arm the track, and now you can see I have level on the track here. Okay, you can also go to the record page, which is also in Mixbus 32C version 9. And you can see all your inputs for all your 24 tracks and whatever MIDI tracks you have coming in. Like I have a PreSonus fader port over here. Which if I touch something, you can see all the MIDI data coming in and out, kind of stuff, which is kind of neat, And then my 23 and 24 is my record out. They're going into my live stream, actually using the what is this called? The Audiocast kind of deal. So anyway, now you've made a track and set the input, which you can do in any digital recording software. Now you just go in and press record. So interestingly enough, Mixbus acts, the transport controls is just like an analog console. So you can either do this in one or a few ways, but first you would want to arm the track individually. You can click on the master record arm and then just press the space bar, and that's going to start your recording. But if you don't want to click around as much just to start recording, you could technically, let's say I want to start at the very beginning here, you can just do shift and then space bar on your keyboard, and that will also start the transport and automatically arm the master record arm, just like on your transport control on an analog console. So we're recording and we're saying stuff and we're capturing all these magical moments. Then we're going to stop. Okay. So let's say this is your chorus right here. I'm going to hit tab and put in a marker here. So this is going to be my chorus marker. If I can type in chorus 1. Okay, so let's say we want to punch in right here. So from the playhead, we can do shift and then the left angle bracket, like on your transport controller. We hear our previous recording, and now it punches in where the playhead originally started. So now I'm going to record over my chorus, and let's say we like that part, and then we need to take a break, and then we want to punch into the next section here. So we're going to go to the end of this piece. Do the same thing, shift, left angle bracket, record over my chorus. They're giving me 2 bars of pre-roll. We like that part. And now I'm just recording even more. Okay? You can also punch in without having to do 2 measures of pre-roll just by hitting the space bar. Now I'm just recording even more. You can hear what you've previously recorded, then do shift R. And that also engages the master record arm up there. So you can really do it in one of 2 ways. I prefer shift spacebar to do it all at once. Or sometimes if I just want to play, and then, okay, I know I want to punch in at bar 21, I'll just do shift R. Now I'll punch in that spot. Maybe I want to punch back out. But I want to keep the playhead going or keep the transport going. I can punch in again, Shift R. So that's pretty much the only keyboard shortcuts you really need to memorize when you're recording is Shift Spacebar to automatically start the master record arm and start recording. You can press Spacebar to start playback, and then Shift R to punch in, and then Shift R to punch out. Or you can do Shift left angle bracket to do 2 bars of pre-roll, and then it'll punch in at the spot where the playhead originally started. So I had last 2 weeks I've had probably like 6 sessions. A few up here in this studio doing about 9 songs. Cool. Guy played piano, his brother sang and did acoustic guitar, and now it's my job. He actually lives over in Netherlands, so he wanted to come in and like do some stuff with his brother. So now it's my job to finish laying down bass. I'm going to do acoustic guitar for a few more songs, do some electric guitar stuff, and then mix it. And be like, here you go. Whatever. So that was answering Sachi's question there. Yeah, so the Discrete 4, which is also a Antelope Orion thing, I think. The Discrete 4, yeah, that's an Antelope thing. It's a MyTech converter. So that's what he was talking about. Yeah, so this live stream is live on the channel and it is public, so you can go back and listen to it a little bit later. So Bruce, your process now for recording with the 24-track analog machine, what's some other projects that you've done here since you've had it?
Well, in Madison, there's Grace Episcopal Church. It's right on the square, Center City, right across the street from the Capitol building. And Madison's the state capitol. And they have a free show once a month. It's called Grace Presents, and they feature a local Madison artist. And I've been recording that series for about 10 years. And
oh, cool.
So, yeah, there was a group, Ray Rideout Quartet. It's a jazz thing, and so I actually hauled my 2-inch machine out there after I'd had surgery on my hand, which got infected, by the way, and my kid, he helps me. And he said, Dad, maybe you should go to the hospital instead of doing the gig. And I'm like, I'll be all right.
Yeah.
Well, I should have listened to him because it was pretty unpleasant. Well, that's unique. I don't usually haul that 2-inch machine around. That thing's 305 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so...
definitely a 2-man job.
Yeah,
for
2
sure.
or more. Luckily, with the weight distribution and geometry of my car, I can put it against the bumper and kind of tip it in. So that's a way to get it around. But
and the guts don't like get messed up or rattle around too much?
Not really. It's not good to move it too much. I mean, it is on wheels, so it's meant to be moved, but... I mean, it's fragile. It's a 92, so... Well,
sure, yeah.
Tape machine years, it's new, but still, it's over 30 years old, and it's got some idiosyncrasies, that's for sure. So, I'm a live facility as well. I do a lot of live stuff. I did the Ben Ferris Quartet recently at Grace Presents. It's, let's see, youtube.com/Grace Presents, all one word. You can check that out. There's a lot of the shows there, although our video guy moved to Pittsburgh, so there hasn't been anything in a few months. But if anybody's interested in hearing any of that, I can be contacted. bskmastersound.com is my webpage. Good way to find me. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of live stuff, and then I'll come back and mix it through my Allen & Heath GL4, like I mentioned earlier. And that's kind of what I've been doing recently. Yeah. Oh, and the UW Russian Folk Orchestra. I've worked with them a bunch of times, and they did a show at the First Unitarian Society in Madison. Every time I go there, everybody tells me, hey, this place was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. I'm like, It's great. I don't care. I don't care. It's fine. It's a decent sounding room and it's a nice facility. So I've been working with them for a lot of years, and we just finished mixing a show we recorded on May 18th, and Viktor Gorodinsky, who he left the Soviet Union in 1982 and was a librarian at the UW for most of his career here in the United States, and he's been running this orchestra for 27 years. And so I've recorded a few shows of theirs. It's an all-volunteer thing, and so the talent pool varies widely.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's all in good fun.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not expecting, Celine Dion every performance or anything.
Yeah, the London Symphony Orchestra. Neither one of those would hire me, that's for sure.
Yeah.
They should, but...
Here's another question from Sachi. What are your guys' thoughts on Focusrite ISA-1 preamp? I use the SM57 into a Focusrite ISA-1 into my Mytek 96 via SPDIF into the Antelope Discrete 4, and I'm kind of surprised how good the SM57 sounds.
Well, do you want my honest opinion?
Yes. Give it to us.
Not a fan of Focusrite. I could never get good sounds out of that, and I don't care for the 57 either. I just don't like the Shure sound. So I don't know that particular unit. To be fair, I don't want to just dismiss this setup that you have here. And just because I don't like something or don't understand it doesn't mean that it's bad. The truth of a thing is not contingent on my understanding of it.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing.
I mean, any signal path is a sum of its parts, for sure.
Right.
So, okay, you got 96K, really nice A to D conversion stuff. Well, maybe that's 50% of the sound, and that's the 50% that matters the most.
I'm of the firm belief that whatever your studio's budget or worth is, if you're a digital setup, half of that should be converters. So you got a $100,000 studio, you should have $50,000 converters. I've said that for years, and Rick Beato, he's got another channel on YouTube. He interviewed Bob Clearmountain one time, which is one of my very favorite engineers. Mixing he does mostly, and he said the same thing.
Surprisingly enough.
Yeah. So if you got good converters, I think if you don't have good converters, then that's where it'd be a good idea to put some money. And the idea of a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, I don't really subscribe to that for audio. I liken it more to panes of glass that are stacked on top of each other, and you want each one to be as clean as possible. So if you got 12 of them and 11 are perfectly clear and one is dirty, that's similar to having 12 of them that are a little dusty each. Right. And it adds up to the same amount of light blockage and or distortion. So it's not like one bad piece of gear or mediocre piece of gear is going to blow your whole thing. I don't subscribe to that. Because, I've got some gear that's just like, it's functional, but...
Yeah.
But, as I improve on the rest of the rig, the quality of everything else comes up. So, you got good converters, man, that's good for you. That's the best place to start building, I've found, So there's a long-winded answer.
Yeah, well, just for a small example here, my shoe's untied. So this is the mic setup that I used on the Harrison recording console the last weekend, whatever it was. So first of all, it was my brother's 1998-ish Pearl Export kit, drum kit. So I'm using this Rode NT4 as my overhead mic. Okay, just easy. You don't have to worry about phase issues or anything. You just
coincidence.
So yeah, it's nice. Just a stereo
XY kind of thing.
Stereo XY. So that's that one. And then on the toms and the snare, they only used a high tom and a low tom. For that, It's just a run-of-the-mill, not the highest brand, but they're sure. But it's the PG series, which is like a lower series than like the SM series, I guess. So I use these on the toms. You can kind of see what kind of mic that is. Snare, toms, kick drum, just on the outside of the kick. Because that kick drum actually has like just a big hole in it. So it actually lets a lot of the bass out. Which if you had a front head with a smaller hole, you can kind of keep more of that resonance in kind of deal. But anyway,
it tends to be punchier too.
Yeah, and it sounded good anyway. And then I didn't really use these microphones here, though I could have. This is just a PG81 kind of. It's just a small diaphragm condenser microphone, which I didn't end up using. And then I used my my Rode NT2A in Omni mode in the foyer of the building, which is like super high, like probably a 30-foot ceiling, and just very reverberant in there. So we use that as the room mic, as our like echo chamber kind of deal.
Nothing like a real room. Nothing like recording the sound of the room.
Yeah, and
no plug-in does it.
I'll throw up the tracks a little bit later so you can check them out. But I played. I played the drums. I did have to go back and pocket the drums a little bit, kind of give it the Nashville treatment, if you will. But the drums turned out good. Actually, I sat on the edge where the foyer meets the main entrance to the office. So I set the piano bench there, and I sat with my banjo, my mandolin, my dobro, and my acoustic guitar in a figure 8 mode. So I got the direct sound of the acoustic instrument, but a little bit of bleed from that foyer sound, and just gave the acoustic instruments a nice sense of space without being too wet or too dry.
Sure.
It was really cool. It worked out good.
It's nice to let the room kind of mix it for you.
Yeah. And
mic placement's so important.
And the vocalists, they stood kind of like off into the office. It was more dry vocal. For them, but we could always add reverb later, kind of deal. So anyway, with that said, I mean, we used a Harrison console with Dante virtual sound card, Brooklyn converters, that kind of deal,
Sure.
And not very fancy mics, and we still got a great sound out of it. So yes, we recorded through a console, which is probably half the sound anyway,
right.
And then but all that to say, I mean, the mics weren't anything special. I pretty much played everything except for bass and piano, which was done by our plug-in developer guy. And he's like a really good bass player, so it's like, all right, you just play bass. And he actually did really good. He played a lot of licks I probably wouldn't have thought to play. And it just worked out really good. So,
well, there's some really great sounding records out there that use really basic gear. Like Boston's first record, they used a lot of mostly 57s on that, and that guy did it at his house.
Yeah.
And came out great. It's a great sounding record. And then Van Halen 1, all the drums were all done with 57s and MD421 Sennheiser, and then they had two 414 EB AKGs for the overheads.
Yeah.
But I think even for Eddie's guitar, they used a 57, and then for Michael Anthony bass, it was direct. For Dave's voice, I don't know, so I don't want to speculate. But there's not super expensive mics. But
yeah.
That is a great sounding record. Well, those first 5 Van Halen records, as far as the sound, I don't think you can go wrong. It's Don Landee is the engineer for all those records, produced by Ted Templeman. Just really, really pulled it off. I mean, they're great sounding records. Just very basic, some EQ, some reverb, some compression. That's it. Nothing fancy. That's kind of the way I do things. That's my sound as well.
All right, Bruce, we've got a good question here. Thinking of upgrading to RME converters. Any recommendation?
Yes. I was recommended by Justin Cordelou. He's a good friend of mine, and he's a big engineer and producer in Nashville. We went to school together at MTSU in the early zeros, late 90s. And, fame did not change him. He was a super nice guy, no ego, easy to work with. One of these guys that if you can't get along with him, the problem is you.
Right.
And what? He's still like that. He didn't change. He's still the same cool guy. So I called him whenever I need recommendations, and he recommended the Fireface 800 by RME. They haven't been made in a long time. Actually, their interface is Firewire. But I actually ended up buying 3 of them, and you can gang them together by Firewire. They can use the 400 or the 800, and then you can gang the word clock signals together to keep all the clocking going the same on all the converters. You can get them for several $100s. They're still out there on eBay, Reverb. And yeah, you might have to fuss with them to get them working for Firewire, because that's been gone for over 10 years. Yeah. There was a USB version, I forget what it was called, the Fireface UCX, I think.
Yeah.
And
there's new UCX versions out there.
Yeah. Well, I recommend RME. They were super stable. I never had problems with them locking up, causing hardware conflicts. They would work and play well with any program that I used. I am strictly PC Windows. I use 7, and now I'm on 10 because I was kind of forced to go to that. But never had trouble with clocking, plugins, software. The things would just work. And the price to quality ratio is really there. What you get for what you pay. Yeah, check out RME. Do it.
Yeah, I still have the UFX unit. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm trying out, obviously, the Antelope unit at the moment, which is also really good. I mean, I don't know what the exact specs are on the Antelope stuff, but I mean, I like the what I like about it is the interface. If I can find where my interface is here.
Yeah, specs really don't tell you a whole lot.
Yeah.
And I know with the RMEs, Black Line Audio does modifications to those. You can send them to them, and they can do their thing. So that's a consideration.
I will be doing a tutorial series on how to use the Orion Studio Synergy Core. I don't know why the name has to be so long, but even if they just called it Antelope Audio like Synergy Core or something, I don't know, that would have been fine with me. But I just like the idea of all the routing options here. You can take the preamps and go directly to your computer record channels, or you can take the preamps and go to your effects in, and then you can take the effects out to the record out. So you can technically could have preamp 1 being on channel 1, comp record 1, and then preamp, and then AFX 1 out going to like channel 2. So you could have your totally dry signal recorded and a totally wet signal recorded, EQ, compression, all the stuff. It's just really neat.
Oh, megabytes are cheap enough these days.
Oh yeah, sure.
As well.
And then this is the AFX in portion here. So we got a Harrison 32C EQ. I can do a little, high pass filtering, EQ, whatever I want. DB 160 or the
DBX 160.
Yeah,
copy.
the DBX 160 kind of deal. Yeah. All kinds of like vintage analog, processing here. Which I try not to do too much. But
I always do that in the mix.
For example, on channel 8 here, I had like a Fairchild, I did a LA2A, and then I had the 32C EQ for that vocal session I did last week. And I mean, it wasn't doing a lot, but it was just knocking off like some high transients.
Some straight transients.
Yeah, just kind of shaping the sound a little bit going in, which is nice. So it was it's a good option, and I'm definitely liking it so far.
Yeah, because some of the best microphones actually well, some of the best in my experience, actually need some processing. You run them as is, might not be, the best. You can't use them like that, because I have 2 Coles 4038s. They've been made since the 50s, pretty much unchanged. Mine are from the early zeros. They're about 20 years old, and so they're ribbons. All ribbons are figure 8, pretty much.
Yeah.
But they're really dull. They're smooth as anything. They're just, smooth as a nice old scotch, but you gotta dial in 10K.
I want to know.
And I'm not a wino or, whatever a liquor expert is.
Yeah.
But you gotta put it 10K, jack at 10 dB at least. Like, you gotta start with that, or you're just not gonna get the sound you like. But, a lot of the Beatles' early stuff especially used the 4038 or overhead. Please Please Me, the first few records, and then Dark Side of the Moon used those as stereo overhead. I heard an interview with Alan Parsons recently, and who
he was on Rick Beato's channel,
right?
I haven't listened to that yet, but I want to.
I recommend that interview, and he always talks up the 4038s, and he's the one that said dial in 10K and jack at 10 dB, and that's what he said, and that's what I do as well.
Words to live by.
And here's another tip, that's if you are using tape and you're recording directly to that, some processing on the way in is warranted. For example, with the 4038, you definitely want to do the EQ before it goes onto the tape, because if you have to jack the highs, well then you're playing it off the tape and then you EQ it, you're going to bring the noise floor up significantly in the high frequencies if you do it that way. Whereas if you jack the high frequencies as it's going on, then either you won't have to alter it, or maybe turn it down a little, and then you can actually roll off some of the noise. So that's some of the tricks you got to play with the whole analog thing. The medium is part of the message. It's not merely a storage system. Life in general is about what lie do you prefer. I think in some ways that's the analog digital argument. It's a different distortion signature, and really understanding how the technology works, especially with analog, you really got to know it, because so many things in life, people are more in love with the idea of a thing than the thing itself. Like like marriage, for example.
Yeah.
And tape's the same way. A lot of people think it's cool and want to use it, and I encourage that. But if you don't really understand how it works, you can't maintain your own machine, you're not going to get anywhere close to the most out of it. So
yeah, that was my experience. Unfortunately, I had the Tac-O-Bout 38.
38, right?
And
an MSR 16, I think you had.
Yeah, for a short time, and I just didn't know enough about it to keep it going. So it really didn't make sense for me to have it. Even though it was cool playing around with it. Yeah, especially that Tascam 38. That machine just had all kinds of issues.
Right. Well, remember one time we did work on it.
Yeah.
But then a lot of time went by. And a lot of those old machines, there haven't been any tape machines made in 30 years. And those are the newest ones, and
right.
A lot of them have idiosyncrasies. And
yeah.
So if you don't know, they're very high maintenance.
Well, we worked on it. Well, you worked on it. I watched. And then I actually took it to Welcome to 1979, like I think twice. And like the rubber bearing, like all the different stuff that made the motors turn, it just kept falling off.
Seizing up. And
yeah, it was just...
Thing about those Tascam 38s and 48s, the spindle motors, well, the little platter that the reel attaches to, behind it, there's a cylinder with a hole drilled in it, and then there's the motor shaft coming out that it sits on, and it's got 2 set screws that are 90 degrees to each other, and those are always walking out. They don't have a jam nut, and they don't have a lock washer on them. I don't know why. I think it's a bad design. So if you have one of those, well, because the problem is, the reason it's a cup, and that sits on there, is you can adjust. Split the camera. It adjusts the depth, so it'll adjust how far the platter will stick out on the front of the machine, so that way it can line up with your guides.
Okay, yeah.
Real nicely. And so then it's adjustable, and that's fine, but those set screws just don't hold. And so I've had to go in there and tap it out to a bigger screw, which is a major pain in the neck. And then I had to put in a screw, put on a jam nut, and yeah, it's just, like I said, it's a huge pain in the neck. If you're willing to do that, then, you can, it'll work great, it'll sound fine. And another thing about the 48s especially is underneath, there's all the circuit cards, or all the audio circuit cards are going underneath, and all 8 of them sit there right in a row. And they have these connectors, they slide into these guides and snap into these connectors on the bottom. There's a board with a bunch of connectors on it that the audio board slides into. Well, the connectors on the board, those solder joints tend to get cold. So you take the card out, turn upside down, and resolder all the little connections.
Wow.
Where those cards slide in. And so, all of a sudden you might have like the cell sync function on channel 7 not work all of a sudden.
Right.
You bump the machine and the solder joint breaks, because a lot of those machines are 40 years old now. And so that's just something I've had to keep on top of constantly. So I can keep it running, but you're going to need to know somebody.
Well, I'm glad you know how to do that stuff. And if anyone's in your area that needs that kind of work, then definitely call Bruce, because he's the guy to do it.
Yeah, South Central Wisconsin, Illinois. Well, look me up. Maybe we can work something out.
Heavy Mayo says my Strata Prime module already has a bum touchscreen. How long have you had it, Heavy Mayo? Or is it just like a pixel that's gone out? Or does it not work at all? I would definitely call the, contact Alesis and get that looked at.
Now, I worked for an electronics shop in Florida about 20 years ago, and
yeah,
I probably shouldn't mention them because there's weirdness there, but they were the Western Hemisphere dealer for EMU products. And so we had all sorts of different kinds of screens that, you could just get the screen, buy it from us, mail it to you. So if you can get a hold of that screen and you have some mechanical ability, you might be able to replace that yourself. What does he say there? There's a reply.
They're having him pay for shipping. That's dumb.
Yeah, but so it's a warranty?
Well, it should be under warranty. Where did you buy it from, Heavy Mayo? Either Sweetwater, Zounds, Amazon, Craft Music. I mean, there's all kinds of online stores that carry the Alesis Strata Prime.
Yeah, and do you have to send it to Alesis? What's the... And
maybe.
Is it a warranty thing, or...
Well, you would think it'd be under warranty.
Well, there's that word again.
Yeah, I know, right? You would think. You would think. Oh, Guitar Center. Okay. Well, that's the thing with the Guitar Center is when I worked there for like 4 months. So what they want you to do is they want you to buy the extra warranty on top. So therefore, if you pay like an extra $100 or extra, let's just say on the high end, extra $200 on a $3,500 kit, then they take all the responsibility to ship it back and forth and all the stuff. But if you forego that extra warranty, it's kind of in your hands at that point. So yes, you'll have to pay for shipping. You'll have to, they might fix it for free, but you'll probably have to pay for shipping, which is what you're.
They may pay to send it back. A lot of places will do that, where you send it there and they'll send it back.
I mean, shipping out is like probably $30, if that, maybe. I mean, it's just a small unit. It's not very expensive. He says Guitar Center is covered. Yeah, so they're probably covering the fix it, but you still have to pay for shipping, which is, I mean, it's not that bad, really. I mean, it stinks. It's a bum situation, but if that's the way it is, then that's just what you gotta do. I currently have the Strata Prime set up at church, and been using that the last few months, and it's working great. Now we're only using it once a week, and the screen is only on for maybe a few hours at a time because I turn it off after every service. But I mean, even when I had it here in the studio, it does have an auto off function, so it doesn't have to stay on for like 24 hours kind of deal. It'll automatically turn off after like 30 minutes or something. Or at least the screen will like kind of go like dim,
right?
And then it'll just wake back up when you touch it. But yeah, I mean, anything electronic, head rush, any kind of guitar modeler, they're all going to have their issues from time to time. Like, nothing's going to be perfect. But that's why you have warranties and extended warranties and
well, those old tape machines
whatever.
don't have screens, but they got light bulbs going bad, and it is a pain in the neck.
Yeah.
There's always a hassle for everyone.
Yeah.
Got a new
So you're saying it's covered by Alesis, not Guitar Center. Yeah, that's fine. I did forget to turn it off for a couple of nights. Yeah, but that shouldn't really matter. I mean, like I said, it won't turn off by itself, but it will kind of go dim. So,
and even then, that shouldn't be enough to kill it.
No.
It sounds like a defective.
Yeah, you just got you just got the luck of the draw and got a bad one, and it's fine. And they'll fix it and they'll send it back, and you should have years of good success with that unit. And the kit itself. I mean, it's a great kit. It sounds really good. It feels good. It feels like you're playing an acoustic kit. Which is what I like. And then if you need to go tweak a sound or EQ something or compress something, then you can. It's all pretty good. So we've been going for about 59 minutes at this point. So if y'all have any audio or recording questions, once again, we have Bruce Kasprzyk in the house. All analog, which is what I call him, Mr. Analog. I don't know. What do you like to be called? Mr. Analog?
Mr. Analog. I have a radio show, WSUM.org. Thursdays, 6 to 8 a.m. Central.
Nice.
I'm DJ Juicy Jr.
You're still doing that?
Yeah, and it's the new Awesome Hour.
Awesome.
That's the name of the show.
So,
live, rare, local, forgotten 90s.
So you can listen online, right?
That's right, yeah. If you're in South Central Wisconsin, it's 91.7 FM, but online it's WSUM.org. Right. And there is a 24-hour replay.
I'm looking this up right now. So WSUM.org.
.org.
I can type, I promise.
Yeah. And so the show schedule. Okay, so Thursday the 22nd. Yeah, the new Awesome Hour. There I am right at the top.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Whoa.
That's not my logo. I don't know why that's there.
Wow. What is it even doing? Well, that's cool. Yeah. I'll post this in the chat and also put it in the description of this video.
And the new awesome hour at gmail.com. I can be contacted there, or
nice.
bskmastersound.com. Anybody has any questions about analog stuff or repairing analog or working with any analog device.
bskmastersound.com.
Yeah, I'll try to help you if I can.
Ooh, that's a nice looking website.
Yeah, that's my buddy Alex Charlin did that. I gave him the pictures, and that's some power amp that I built. Well, me and my dad, really.
Yeah. That's really good. Yeah, I'll put these in the description of the video once we're done. So people can go check that out. What's your thoughts on, what's your favorite tube amp? Or do you have a tube amp that you prefer?
Like for guitar or stereo?
Yeah.
I don't really have anything for guitar because I don't really know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
To be fair. I know music and I have no talent for music, but as far as, for your stereo, if you're into hi-fi audio, there's a lot of old stuff from the stuff from the 50s and 60s is very expensive because there's not a lot of it left, and it can be high maintenance. There's a lot of stuff from the 70s that's good. Audio Research, they had a series called there's the SP6. There was the SP8 as well, but the SP6, there were 6 different revisions of that. Mine is the first revision from 1978. I got it new in 1978. It was like $1,200, $1,300, something like that. So I got one used about 15 years ago for $300, and it needed work. But that's the thing about tube stuff is you can usually fix it yourself, at least the older stuff anyway. But be careful. There are lethal voltages in there, especially with power amps. Some of those power amps, the plate voltage is well over 500. On my amps, it's 565, and that can kill you. So watch out for that. But my power amps at home are ones that I built myself with my dad. But if you can find like old Fisher, Fisher makes a 500. There's one called the 500B. There are a few revisions of that, but the Fisher 500B has a tuner, has a stereo FM tuner, and the power tubes are 7189s. They started making them again. You can get the power tubes now where you weren't able to for the longest time, but if you can find one of those and it's running, that would be a good place to start.
So, for example,
integrated amp.
You're taking a record player, right? That may have a built-in preamp, but you might add your own preamp, right? So what kind of preamp would you add into that equation there?
Well, phono pre has to be different than a line level pre for 2 reasons. 3 reasons. One, impedance matching. You have to have a much, much lower input impedance for a phono stage. 2, you got to have a much, much higher gain.
Yeah.
For a line level stage, for like a CD player or whatever, you might only need like 10 dB of gain. Well, for some low output phono cartridges, the low output, you need like 65. And 3, there's an EQ curve. So when a record is cut, if you cut it to where all frequencies are the same loudness, it would take up too much space on the record. You'd only be able to get 3 or 4 minutes aside.
Wow.
So to overcome that problem, on the cutting side, they roll off the low frequencies and then they boost the highs. And then that does 2 things. One, it allows more space on the record, and also most of the noise on vinyl occurs in the high frequencies. So when you boost it on the highs and then roll it off on the lows, and then when you play it back, it does the opposite.
Oh, wow.
So it comes out sounding like it went in.
Yeah.
That's and so you roll off the high frequency noise, and then you can get your lows back. Now there's like 40 dB of gain change over there, and it does cause some phase shift. There's a standard curve called RIAA. Any stereo record cut after 1958 has that curve, and so a phono pre has that curve built in, and it applies that curve so that the record will play back correctly. Because even if you gave it the gain, and you put it through a line level input, it would sound real high and thin. It wouldn't work. So, all right, to answer the question, instead of just droning on, you can spend as much as you want. I've heard, Audio Research, again, they're still around, and they have a phono pre called the Reference 2. It's $12,000. And all it does is bring it from phono input to a line input, and then that goes into your line input, like where you put your CD player. Mm-hmm. But then, like Soundsmith out in New York, which I highly recommend, Peter Letterman, who's the owner and has been since 1980, and he hand builds the cartridges himself. And their top cartridge is $8,000 for a phono cartridge. But they make a phono pre that's about $1,400, very high quality. But if you're just getting started, an old 70s dual turntable with an Ortofon 2M Red cartridge, which they're new, $99 on Amazon.
Yeah.
As far as like value and audio, price to quality, you can't. It'd be really hard to beat that. Whenever I restore a turntable for somebody, and I've done it a lot of times, that's the one I always get for them. And then you can find phono pre's for under $100 even. I mean, they're not going to sound great, but it'll get you started.
Yeah, that's great. Well, here's a little glimpse of Bruce's website real fast, if I can expand it out a little bit. So we got tape baking, open reel transfer, LP transfers, all kinds of transfers, whatever you need.
Yeah, if you've got old tapes from grandparents or whatever that you can't play anymore,
yeah,
talk to me. Oh, but here's a piece of advice. Even if you have a machine to play those old tapes, I strongly recommend that you don't, because you can destroy them by playing them. There's a process I do, which is the baking, which can restore it to the point where it can be safely played and transferred. So if you want to do it yourself, make sure you do your research, because you might irrevocably damage that tape and not be able to get anything out of it, and then you're sunk.
Yeah.
So be careful or talk to me.
So there's some mixing and audio production, recording type stuff, mastering to CD, to LP, to cassette, master to high-res files, which is your digital.
Yeah, 24, 192.
Digital stuff.
I can do DSD as well, which is that's
the audio transfer and restoration. And then we have audio equipment repair. So tape machine cleaning, tape machine calibration, turntable setups, all that stuff. So some good options there. Then we got the inquiries page, which is just the email.
Yeah, it just opens your email.
That's cool.
Browser. I used to have a form, but it malfunctioned, so we just did that.
Yeah. No, it's all good.
That's my Otari MX80 back there. Look at those huge 24-track heads there.
That's
glorious.
That is a lot.
Yeah.
How well do you like cutting tape?
I don't. I don't do it because tape is so darn expensive that I just I'll just rewind it and try it again. I'll just keep running it and starting over and spending time rather than and once you cut a tape, you can't reuse it. So sometimes I'll use the 2-inch tape. We'll do a record, and then the client will want to reuse the tape for their next project. After we've mixed it, and we'll do a digital archive of the multi-tracks with those merging converters. But then if you cut it, you can't do that because then there might be a little blip in a place it doesn't belong. So
right, yeah,
I don't do that. I don't feel it does not put my mind at ease.
Yeah, I've Steve Albini recently passed. But I've seen some videos of him working with other bands, and he'll just get right in there and he'll rewind the tape and get like just in the right spot. He'd be like, slice it, move over here, slice it, piece them together.
Yeah, and it works.
And like you just never hear any blips or any gaps or
some
any
guys.
kind of weirdness.
Some guys are so stinking good. It just absolutely amazes me. Like, because how do you know that those are going to fit? I mean, your time can be correct as far as the part you take out or put in, but how do you know you're going to put those together and it's going to sound right? The risk is so high.
Yeah.
That I just don't. I don't recommend it. I don't have the guts to do it. So.
Yeah. If it was me, I'd probably just transfer it to digital.
Yeah. Mix
Or get the parts as best you can on tape and then just transfer it, and I can chop it up.
Yeah,
whenever I need to.
Well, when we did Not Before Noon, 20 years ago, believe that was 21 years ago.
Yeah,
we didn't cut anything. We just kept doing the takes until it was right, and it took 7 months to do 7 songs. But you know what?
Yeah,
that record was a masterpiece. Not that it was perfect, but nothing was overlooked.
Yeah,
we just grinded it out, and that was a blast.
Yeah, and you're learning along the way and
knowing
your limits, and you just don't know the process all that great. So, but yeah, it's just that was fun. I definitely appreciate the let me be the fly on the wall, and
well, you're able to communicate with the artists. I don't know anything how to do that.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yep. Yeah.
So, guys, once again, this is Bruce Kasprzyk, and all the way from Madison, Wisconsin. And if we have any other questions, that is great. But in the meantime, I got a few instruments here we can look at. So this is a recent inquiry. So I've been buying up Kiesel guitars for the last year or so.
Step out of the way.
No, you're fine. And so this is a black finish. Basically, kind of it reminds me of like a Blackie from Eric Clapton, or it can be like a David Gilmour kind of thing. It's just that black classic Strat kind of looking deal.
It looks Stratty, but with like a Les Paul kind of pickup there.
Well, yeah,
I've never seen anything like that before.
So there's different configurations you can put in a guitar, and typically in an S style guitar, which is a Strat style guitar, you would have 3 single coil pickups. But in this one, they have a humbucker in the bridge, then 2 single coils in the middle and the neck there, and then you got your 5-way switch. So you got all the way down in position 1, you have the humbucker. But then in position 2, you're actually splitting the coil on the inside. So you're combining the inside coil of the humbucker and then the middle pickup together. Then it's just the middle, and then it's neck and middle, and then it's just neck. Now, eventually, I'll probably add either a push-pull pot for the tone knob, so I can pull it out, and then I can split the coil that way on the bridge position. Mm-hmm. Or you could also do a blend knob kind of deal, which honestly I could probably just put like a little mini toggle switch right here to split the coil on that one. But then on the tone, you can wire it in such a way to where if you turn the tone knob, you actually blend in the neck pickup along with the humbucker. And it kind of gives you that middle position of a Les Paul kind of sound. So it's kind of neat. There's the Stratocaster is really one of the most versatile guitars because there's so many different wiring schemes and ways you can configure it and modify it and just different stuff like that. But I basically just like the black finish of it. It's got a nice ebony fretboard. It's got the roasted maple neck, lock-in Kiesel tuners, all the stuff. So anyway, sounds good. The trim is very smooth. You can either pull it back or you can push it all the way down. You can get a little shake and a little wiggle in the sound there. So
I don't know about your tuning on that. Check it.
Well, it's pretty close. But yes, I'll check it later. That's the guitar I used on the tracks from last weekend, and it turned out good. It turned out pretty good. I got a pick on the floor here. All right, guys. Thank you everyone for watching and tuning in, asking questions, and once again we got my friend Bruce here in town for a little visit. And I was like, hey, I go live every Tuesday, so you want to just hop on and talk about recording and gear and whatever else? Is like, yeah, sure.
Thank you, I'm honored.
Yeah, it was fun. We got a nice camera angle on you, and way better than this Brio webcam thing. I bought this thing, and it was like, yeah, I just need like an extra like camera angle. I mean, actually, it didn't look all that great. So, should probably just buy like another one of these kind of cameras, and even just go to a pawn shop and just find a used one somewhere.
Right.
Just something that like you can, because I connected with the USB cable here into the computer, and so they act like a webcam, but you have the full high fidelity of like a DSLR kind of deal. So, yeah, they're good. So, all right, guys. I'm Dr. McFarland. Stay tuned probably later this week on a Quilter Direct Amp review, official review, and some other video topics I'll be working on. So, we'll see you guys in the next video, and keep rocking.